All right, everybody, welcome back to Nevermore Hollows. This is one of our episodes that we tell true stories where we interview folks that have had paranormal experiences, and we bring them in and we talk to them and we hear their story and let them tell it in a safe environment here in the bunker. As you know, I'm Lafayette Faust. We've got Chris Madman Goins with us, and tonight
Hey.
we have again John Fike, who is also known as John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp, and that's his character on TikTok. And he also is got a new show on YouTube called Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. So make sure you check that
Got
out.
it right on the first try.
It
Most
was a
people
tongue
can't do
twister.
that.
I'm a professional. You know, Lafayette Faust is a professional. So for all of you folks out there, we thank you for embracing these this series that we do, because we know that you come to the show to listen to the horror stories, but this is something that I really like to do, and it helps me meet new people. And I'll tell you a little bit here on this. When with John, sometimes when I'm talking to people like John, I get a story that I can write and tell. There's so many of the stories that I have written that if you really were to peel away the fiction, there's always a nugget of truth in there, something that happened to me or someone else. And with John, recently, we've talked about his character before on when we interviewed him before, but with his character John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp. John has been so good to Nevermore Hollows by pushing us on TikTok and everything else. And we're still tiny. Unfortunately, Nevermore Hollows is a tiny show. But the way I said thank you to John is I wrote the episode that dropped this past Monday, Whoop Ass from Another Planet. We wrote John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp into the show. And that was just how I was saying thank you, John, for all that you've done for Nevermore Hollows. But with that all being said, I want to welcome you to the show again, brother. And as you can see from the numbers that you can see on YouTube, your last interview was only 48 minutes long. There's a whole much more that we've got to come. I thought we might get one or two, maybe 3 episodes out of some of your experiences. We're going to have multiple episodes out of what we've talked to you. But thank you for coming back. And I'm just gonna turn it over to you so you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself and just remind them of who you are, and then let's go from there.
My name is John Fike, also known as John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp. I started my content creation as purely comedy, and I was sitting around a campfire back last summer, got on TikTok live, and just started asking people for their paranormal encounters. And people responded to it. So I continued to do it even after the weather got cold. And then I met these guys at a Bigfoot jamboree. And from there, one of them, Lafayette Faust, convinced me I should just start a podcast.
Yep.
So that's what I did. I take the character John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp and mix him in with some paranormal, and people come on my show and tell their paranormal encounters, and we have a lot of fun.
Good. Now, I know that you're on YouTube now, but off the air, we can talk about, if you're not on any of those other streaming platforms, how we can get you there. But I love what you do on TikTok. I love that you've moved over to YouTube and are expanding. And I just love the name of the show, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I mean, it fits your brand, man. Brother. And your brand is so perfect for what we do here at Nevermore Hollows. So, I'm glad to have you aboard. So, all right. So where we've been talking with you is your experiences at the haunted asylum. And we've got more of those episodes dropping. But what we want to talk about tonight is something that happened to you a couple of months back that hit you pretty hard. Because the night it happened, you called me and Chris, and we got on a three-way call, and we could tell that you were moved by what you saw and what you encountered.
Yes, very much.
So, and after that phone call, Chris and I were talking about it, and we're like, we've talked to folks who have had paranormal experiences. There's certain emotions you can't fake, and you could not fake your emotion that night after what you
Oh,
saw.
no, 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 no. Yeah,
Right.
that was real.
So, if you want, John, if you just start telling us the story, and we're just going to let you run with it. And Chris, if you have any questions or anything as you go, obviously, brothers, step in there. So,
Yeah, man.
So my wife and I, we'd spent the day Christmas shopping. This happened on November 30th of 2024. We had spent the day shopping in Ohio. I live in Indiana, but really close to the Ohio border. Um, so we'd spent all day Christmas shopping. It would have been about 7 o'clock at night, so it's dark. Um, we were we'd just got through Union City, Indiana, going up State Route 28, and um, so there was a car in front of me, and if you're from the country, you know that that time of year, especially, deer are really active.
Hmm.
So I'm watching the road. I'm watching the car in front of me. Um, because you're looking to see if the car in front of you swerves, or you can see something walk in between you and the car in front of you's tail lights, anything like that. My wife was on her phone putting in a Walmart order, so she was not paying attention. Um, we're driving along, and um, the car that was in front of us was probably 200 to 300 yards. It's kind of hard to estimate at night, but um, as I crossed this little bridge, there was something appeared in the road, and when I first called you guys, the word that came to mind was materialized, but I
mhm.
don't really. It was more like it just blinked and it was there. Um, um, God damn, I didn't think it was going to be this hard again.
Yeah. And see, that's why, when you called us that night and I heard the emotion in your voice, that's why I said, hey, let me get Chris on here with you because, clearly what you'd seen was overwhelming. And here we are, you know, almost 3 months down the road, and the thought of it is still pretty powerful.
Yeah. Um, Heck on. Um, so anyway, we have my wife's vehicle it's got pretty bright headlights. They're aftermarket, like LED headlights. And um, 1 second, there's the road's clear,
Hmm.
and then there's something there. And
So now let me set the scene a little bit too, because you and I've talked at you and I and Chris have talked at length about this. You're basically on a dark stretch of road out in the middle of nowhere. And like you said, the only lights would have been from your your truck. I get it was a truck, right?
it's a 2005 Xterra.
Yeah, all right. And then the car that was way ahead of you, and that's the only light on the road. So other than that, you're out in the middle of nowhere. All right, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is a state route, but I mean it's literally it's farmland all around.
Hmm.
There's nothing out there. Um, so just as I cross this bridge, that this something on the center line appears, and at first, I couldn't tell what it was. It was just like a grayish color, but um, as I got closer, I realized that it was like the upper half of a man, and it it was on its knuckles, like holding itself up with its knuckles, and it was kind of so it was facing towards me, like its body was facing towards me, but its head was like looking off to its right. So like it was like it was looking at something off to the right. And as I got closer, it turned its head towards me, and this thing, it didn't have any clothes on. Um, it was kind of muscular. I wouldn't say like bodybuilder, but it looked like it was in shape. Um, the skin was gray. It had no clothes on, and it was below freezing that night. It's into November, and then it turned, and when it looked at me, it didn't have a mouth or a nose. It was just like skin, like where the mouth and nose should have been. It was just skin, and its eyes were like just like sockets, like there was nothing there. Um, I didn't see any eye shine or anything like that. It was just like I don't want to say holes, but like in a skull, if
Hmm.
there's nothing there, had no hair.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't see ears, but that doesn't mean whether it had them or not. I don't know because this whole thing only took a few seconds. 'Cause I'm doing 60 mile an hour, and um, as I got closer, um, it kind of lunged at the car,
Yep.
like yeah, like when I say lunged, like so it's up on its knuckles, and with its left hand, it like swiped at the car, like it was trying to reach for the car.
Right.
And I never
Now, and
saw
it
the hands. I never
right.
saw the hand itself, just like its arm came up is all I saw.
Right. Now, when you say it's standing kind of on its hands, you can't see the legs, so what you thought had happened that night was that it had materialized up out of the road, but again, you don't know. Everything was happening so fast. So whether or not it had legs, I want to ask you this: was its arms abnormally long?
I wouldn't say so. I would say um, if it had been a full body, I would say it probably hung. The arms probably would have hung to its hips, maybe a
Okay,
little lower, but not like
gotcha.
abnormally. But I can only see basically from where like the belly button would be up.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that like when I called you guys, I said, it looked like it was coming up out of the ground, but I also don't know if it was dragging
Right,
its the back part of it. It's dark.
right.
All I can see is this the best way to describe it would be like cigarette ash gray
Okay.
thing. It and it like I said, it lunged at the car and I swerved
Hmm.
and I asked my wife, I'm like, did you see that? And like I said, she was on her phone putting in a Walmart order, so she didn't. And it took me a few minutes to even be able to describe to her what I saw because I was afraid. Like I felt fear.
You just saw something that defies all logic, and it just materialized right in front of you. So yeah, being afraid, that's an honest emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went down the road and we turned on the road headed towards where I live. And before I was finally able to tell her what I saw, as you know, and she was like, "Do you want to go back?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I
Right.
don't. I I don't know what I saw,
Right.
and all I know is that at that moment, I felt probably the most fear I've ever felt in my life, and the
And
thought of going back there, just there's no way I could have.
right. And there's something different between saying I'm going to go on a ghost hunt or a Bigfoot hunt and then having a raw moment, unexpected, out of the blue encounter with some sort of paranormal entity and then wanting to go back and you just don't do that. It's kind of like on your show, the other night when I was telling you about the situation I had in my home, the I get questions like this a lot. Why were you staying in that home if there was dark things happening and they were escalating? Well, things were happening, but nothing had attacked me up until that moment. Yeah, were things escalating? And it's just you have to ask, why would anybody stay in any negative environment? You just kind of, that's what I'm used to. But in this situation, it's out of the blue, it's raw, it's in your face, it's visceral.
Yeah.
So
Hey, can I ask you just about the eyes? Did did it look like a skull, or did it have like almost like the alien gray eyes, like the almond shaped,
It was shaped like a skull, like
like a
like
skull?
sockets. And
mhm.
Gotcha.
I think Matthew was the one who asked me that question before, and it didn't look. I don't want it didn't look like the typical gray alien. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
it looked like if you just took the eyes out of some if
I
you took
got
the
you.
eyes out of it
Yeah.
and there was just voids where the eyes should be.
Got you.
So just this begs the question here. And again, I understand this was quick. It was it was a lot to process in just a few seconds. But do you think that when you saw the eyes, did they seem maybe darker or deeper than what it normally would have been with something with no eyes? You know where I'm going with that,
Yeah.
because some people think that the eyes are the windows to the soul. So some people think that the eyes are the window to another dimension even. So that's where I'm going with that kind of thought.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The it, I've replayed it over my mind several times and countless times, but it could have been, they could have been just so deep set
Right.
that in the headlights it looked like there was nothing there. But I don't know. I don't know. At the initial, but then again, I saw everything else about the face. You
Right.
know, there the it was the face was just a little bit like, I want to say it was a little bit like, not the whole face was elongated, but like the lower part of the face was kind of long elongated, like a beard, but it
Okay.
I
wasn't
got
a
you.
beard. It was skin. It was like skin.
Right.
Was it
So
was it
now,
pointed? Was it
I
pointed,
wouldn't say,
or did it square off?
pointed. It was chin shape, but it was. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Go for it.
It was almost like in, this is stupid, in Army of Darkness,
yeah.
Oh,
when,
yeah,
like, how his face was
I
stretched that
got you.
way, kind of
Yeah.
like that, like the bottom part of its face was like, it was like pulled, but
Okay. So now you're saying there was no mouth, but was there like an indention where maybe the mouth should have been?
I didn't see any,
Interesting.
like, it looked like it was just like there wasn't even, I didn't even see, like, if somebody would have had a mask on where a
Hmm.
nose should be. It was just flat. It
Gotcha.
was like you had
Huh.
these eye sockets and it's straight down to the chin or whatever.
So this thing, when you drive by it, you see it, kind of swipe out at your truck, and so you get home and you call me, and I can tell you're moved. You're moved by this. So we get Chris on there. So we start trying to walk through what it is. What do you think this is? And I think we even, when we could tell how moved you were, we even said a prayer of protection over you at that moment,
Yeah.
because why would that manifest in front of you? And I find it interesting that it started manifesting in front of you when you started down this journey of, hey, I'm gonna talk to people, I'm gonna expose this kind of stuff. But anyway, so long story short, there is the three of us are on a call and we're trying to walk through what we think it is. And I think one of us said it could have been a ghoul, some of it could have been a rake, and for those of the folks who know what a rake is, the rake was something that we think was manifested through the internet that may or may not be real.
Yeah.
But a lot of us believe that it is a creature that's been around for a long time, that just got a new name when the internet hit and people started using it. But um, where I'm leading us with that is we've had this conversation on that night of what do we think it is. And we literally couldn't figure it out. And then you go home and you take a look at your truck, and what happened?
Yeah. After I got done talking to you guys, one of you had asked, did I hit it?
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't feel anything. I didn't hear anything. I mean, if you've ever been driving down the road and hit a cat or something, you feel it,
Mm-hmm.
you hear it, but I didn't at the time. So, I was literally shaking when I was talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And, so I went out, smoked a cigarette, and I thought, I'm going to go out and look at the truck. Maybe I did hit it. because when I got home, that was the last thing on my mind. I just wanted to get in the house. So I go out and I look at the front fender, and there's nothing there. But on the lower part of the door, there were 4 like finger marks, like something swiped down the side of the car.
Yeah. And you showed us those
And
pictures. You took the pictures and sent them to me and
Yeah,
Chris. Yeah.
I
man.
measured them, and when you look at the pictures, if you imagine 4 fingers, if you imagine, or you don't have to imagine, I mean, I can send you the pictures again. Um, the if you have your first, middle, ring, and pinky finger, to me it looked like the pinky and ring fingers were close together,
Okay.
and then the other 2 were like spread out. And from fingertip to fingertip, it was about 8 inches.
Wow.
And I measured my own hand, and I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but even with my fingers splayed out, best I could do is like 6 and a quarter. You know,
Yeah.
this thing with its fingers together on the pinky and ring side, it was 8 inches. I
Wow.
mean, that's it's huge.
Yeah. So everybody that listens to this show, once we drop it, is going to be holding out their hand at this moment, trying to think, how wide is that?
That's what
Yeah,
I'm doing, and I'm looking. I'm trying to hold my last 2 fingers together, and that's huge. You
yeah,
know, and for something that I don't want to use the word leisurely, but something that just came around and just swiped.
Yeah.
That's a that's a huge hand. That's basketball player sized at least. You
right.
know, and can I ask? Now you said that it was walking on its knuckles, right?
Well, it was holding itself up with its knuckles. I never saw it. The only move it made was whenever it kind of, and it's not a step, but
I
like
understand what
it
you're saying.
it like
Yeah.
with one hand it kind of moved closer, and then it swiped with the left hand.
Yeah.
But did you see any type of lower body ever?
Never.
Never.
Like I said, it when I first called you guys,
Yeah.
it looked like this thing was coming out of the ground.
Right.
But
Wow.
again, it could have been a trick of the light, and it was dragging the back part of it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I don't think if it had been there, I think you would have seen it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so I mean, either it doesn't have one, or that was still in the process of becoming solid or being pulled from wherever it was coming.
So it's
Interesting.
it's
Uh,
Yeah.
funny it's funny that you mention about not having it. I want to plug my show for a minute.
go for it.
If you listen to, um, I have an episode called Drawing Parallels,
Uh huh.
and it's an interview with Rod from Lodge Tales podcast. He's a Native
Yeah.
American from the Blackfoot tribe up in Montana.
Yeah, I'll listen to him now because of
Yeah,
you.
he
Yeah.
he'll appreciate that. Um, we had a very long discussion on spirituality, and he's been on my show 3 times. But during that episode, the reason we started talking was he heard my encounter, and he gets a hold of me, and he's like, "We have a spirit called dragging entrails full of dirt."
Oh wow.
Mm.
He's like, he is.
Mm.
I think that's what you saw,
Oh wow.
and it's it's basically a half person that
Oh,
it's
gee.
missing its lower body and it's dragging its entrails behind it. But you know,
Oh,
you can hear the whole thing if you listen to Drawing Parallels. You know, he went a little more into depth and, you know, the backstory on that creature. But, you know, he heard it and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is what you heard. This is what you saw." And what I
wow. He
find
knew
what I
exactly.
yeah, I mean, it was like, "Oh, no, that's what you saw." You know,
Oh, dude.
it wasn't like it and when you listen to that episode, you know, the only question he asked is whether it was in the middle of the road or was it beside the road, and he never I forgot to ask him why he asked that question,
That is a very
but
interesting question to ask under the circumstances.
right, but he did go into a little bit of it that in their stories that when you're out in the woods or you're out hunting or whatever and you see something move out of the corner of your eye alongside the road or alongside the path, and then when you
Mhm.
look, it's not there. They say
Yeah.
it's this dragging entrails full of dirt. So I think that
Wow.
was the question, you know, was it like in front of me or to the side of me? Because it
Yeah.
was kind of to the side of me.
What a terrifying creature, and, you sent me that after you spoke with him, you sent me a text, and that's clearly for the fans of the show, there is gonna be an episode eventually of a Nevermore Hollows monster that is very similar, if not the same, dragging entrails full of dirt monster, because it's just
So
that is so terrifying.
so here's the thing.
Yeah.
I had a woman on my show from the Philippines.
Yeah.
She described a creature called the tick tick.
Yes, I know what a tick tick is. Yep.
It is a half torso
Yep.
being, but in over there it flies, and it's like a so okay. This is where the whole drawing parallels thing came from. Um, Rod tells me this story. This creature that he's talking about, it feeds on unborn babies in the womb.
Ooh.
This woman comes on my show talking about the tick tick.
Wait a
It's a
minute. I
half
just read
creature.
about that.
Yeah.
It's a half creature that feeds on unborn babies in the womb.
Wow.
We're talking about the Philippines, and we're talking about Native American culture. These people didn't
Yeah.
have contact with each other, and they
No.
have the
Interesting.
same creature.
Yeah.
And then
Interesting.
I see this thing that kind of meets the description, other than the one in the Philippines, it flies. That's the only
Right.
difference.
But again, where Chris was going a moment ago, as it might have been manifesting in the moment, who knows what it would have manifested had you stayed around to look? It might have manifested wings. It might have manifested whatever else.
I don't know,
Um,
Yeah,
man. Something that just walks on its hands that doesn't
yeah.
have any type of that in my warped mind brings out some really scary images of
Yeah.
something just kind of, I don't know, coming at you with just hands and
And
dragging what yeah.
right, and talking about the way it swiped, the way you describe it, and I may be wrong here, and the fact that there was so little damage done to your vehicle, it was almost like Chris was kind of the where Chris was going with it. It's a lackadaisical approach, almost like it was just there to scare you, just to show you that it exists, to put it
yeah,
because sometimes the greatest fear is not the aggression, it's the fact that now you know I exist.
right.
Well,
And
almost like
I
it
think we
it
even
feeds off that.
I think even when I called you guys, we talked about that too.
Yeah.
That, you know, because I've gone down this path where I'm hearing all
Mhm.
these stories. Um,
Mhm.
and you know, I've had my own paranormal encounters, which you'll hear in the previous episodes. But, you know, I know the paranormal exists. I know the
Mhm.
supernatural exists,
Mhm.
but I had never had that terrifying encounter like I did on November 30th.
Right.
And I kind of wonder, um, I forget who brought it up. It might have been Matthew. And, I don't like giving him credit for anything. I'm just joking, Matthew.
We love you, Matthew. That's Matthew Orton at the Drunken Cryptids podcast for all you folks that are listening.
It might have been him that said, I think it's Nietzsche that said, when you stare into the abyss,
Yes.
sometimes the abyss stares back.
Yes.
Yep.
And it very well could have been that could have been what happened. I'm looking into this kind of stuff, and it's like, hey, here I am.
Well, and we've talked before about folks like us who have had paranormal experiences. A lot of times it's because we are open to it and we see things, and we go, okay, there's a spiritual element there. And then that just kind of helps you see things that people would explain away. And I write a lot about that in Nevermore Hollows, where so many of the townsfolk see it, but they just choose to, there's an explanation. I'm not going to, but to take it biblical and, to do a biblical version of what Nietzsche was saying, the Bible is very clear about don't, there is a spiritual realm and you must fight that spiritual realm, but don't entertain the spiritual realm. So, for folks like us who are going to talk about it and expose it, we have to, there's a line there. You don't want to, you want to expose it, but you don't want to participate in it, because you can bring things into your life. You can, invite things that you don't want, attached to you or your family. So, this almost to me, and only because you know what you felt that night. This almost to me is like the spiritual realm was going, yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
The other thing that when I went on Matthew's show, I'm plugging everybody tonight. When I went on Matthew's show, somebody had commented that they thought I'd seen an Alusa.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started looking into the descriptions, it was similar.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that caught my eye about it, though, in the description, was that the Nalusa, it gives you this overwhelming sense of fear and sorrow. And that's pretty close to what I was feeling that night, So,
Yeah.
when that person commented that, at first I thought, oh, maybe this is what it was. But after looking into the Melusa a little more, I don't think that's what it was. It doesn't match. It doesn't match enough.
Well, there are other entities that give you that same kind of feeling, So, when you first called me, the first thing that popped in my mind was a ghoul, and we've gone down that road. We don't think it's a ghoul either, but I want to take us to this. One of the things that we were talking about that night is how close do you live to cemeteries? And I think Chris is like, well, how close do you live to any type of Native American settlements or historical settlements? And then so you got back to us, and what did you find on that?
So when it first happened, I knew I'd just crossed this bridge, and I go, when you go up and down a road so many times,
Yeah.
You don't pay attention. You don't like, you pass houses that you don't even like, oh, I never saw that house before.
Right.
Literally. And I have video of this. I should send it to you. Where this thing happened is within 100 yards of a freaking cemetery.
Right.
There's a cemetery right alongside the road, right there.
Yep.
But it sits up kind of on a hill. Yep. So, 9 times out of 10 when I'm driving through there, it's at night. So, I didn't really pay attention that there's a cemetery right there.
Right.
But then I started going down the Native American route. I had this person comment about the Nalusa. I had Rod contact me about this dragging entrails full of dirt. This whole area was the front lines for the English and Native American battles that resulted in the Treaty of Fort Recovery.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also burial mounds all over this
Yep.
area.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
9 miles from where I had this encounter along the Mississinawa River, which this happened not far from the Mississinawa River. You can't go to it. It's on private property, but there is an English graveyard built on top of a burial mound,
Wow.
and it took me a little digging to find out where that thing was. You can find it, but it's not easy, and you can't visit it. It's privately owned, but that's literally right down the river from where this happened.
Yeah.
And in the county I live in, so this mountain would have been maybe 10 miles from where my encounter happened. There's a guy, his name is Fritz Zimmerman,
Okay.
and he wrote a series, or he wrote a book, I think it's called Encyclopedia of the Mounds or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically just studied Indiana and Ohio, this whole area, looking for these burial mounds that were on private property. He found one in Jay County,
Hmm.
which is where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And inside this mound were oversized remains,
Yep.
giants.
Yeah.
And it's said that the skeleton was holding the remains of an infant, like a regular sized
Wow.
infant.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
So
So now, Indian burial grounds, Chris and I live, when we're not Lafayette and Madman in the bunker, we live in a place that literally, Chris, you know where I live, right?
Right.
I could literally, it's maybe 400 yards away from where the Trail of Tears, you know,
Yep.
just right through the center of this town. And we have Indian burial or Indian mounds, not as close as some places, but I think that's why so much happens around here is because of that history. And we even have an Indian burial ground that um I don't know, maybe back almost 100 years ago now, back in the 50s or something, 40s, they were digging in it. It was right up the road, Chris, and they found the
Okay. Yeah, I know
Egyptian,
what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and the Hebrew and Egyptian artifacts inside the Indian burial mound.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard of that. I have heard of
Yeah,
that.
that's right up the
I didn't
road,
realize that was so
John.
close to you guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're surrounded by stuff like that, and I'll tell you, some years ago, I was on a trip through Mississippi, and my son and I, whenever we take a trip together, we always take the back roads. We stay off the
Oh,
interstate. There's so much more stuff to get into when you're seeing the back roads. And we came upon an Indian mound, and that day they were letting people out there. Well, there was like 3 people out there. Nobody cares about history anymore, right? So my son and I got to climb on top of this Indian bear, and it was massive. It was one of the big ones. And when we got on the top of that, you could say maybe it's just a state of mind we're in, but we could just feel an energy. It wasn't a negative energy. There was an energy there, you know. Um,
Well, there is the theory that these mounds are portals.
that's
yeah.
right. That's right.
Well, I
So,
mean, that was one of the first documented dogman sightings. Was this security guard saw this thing digging in a Indian burial mound,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it,
yeah.
yeah,
and it supposedly spoke to him. And
Wow.
we are not too far. Alan was talking about the Trail of Tears. We're not too far from the origin, unfortunately, of the Trail of Tears
right,
at Red Clay
Right.
State Park, and there is a blue hole there that they used to let you mess around in, and now they've got it fenced off because people get stupid. But the water there is always freezing cold, and it's as it gets deeper, it's a blue color. And
yeah,
the Cherokee held those places very sacred. And it's if you're there now, not you've probably heard this, but I actually saw a Native American there as I was passing through. I was working midnights at a TV station,
Now,
and
this is not a real Native American. You're talking it was a spirit of a Native American, which
yeah,
is a real Native American, but it
yeah.
was the spirit.
But it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and he saw me, and I saw him, and we kind of waved at each other, and we both had that look on our faces of, I'm looking at why is this guy on a horse at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's probably looking the same look as that. What is that thing he's in?
Yeah.
Because
So
I was
you
in the
almost
dark.
think, yeah, you said to me once that you thought maybe it was even a portal that you were looking through.
Yeah, it was some kind of time slip or something because
Yeah.
if this guy was a reenactor, he's one of the best reenactors I've ever seen in my life. And also he disappeared because I kind of had to watch the road for a minute because it's curvy, and I went back to look and he was gone. And I don't care how fast your horse is, it's not that fast.
Right.
But I was that fast on the way home.
So,
I get that.
look, that the first time that Chris told me that story, because again, Red Clay's just right up the road. We grew up around here, but
Right.
it before we're at the 45-minute mark, and I want here in a second. I would like to transition us into just maybe some free flowing conversation for about another 30 minutes, and that'd be a good length of episode. But I want to make sure first, John, that you've told your story to your satisfaction.
I think so. I think I've cleared my mind.
Good. Well, look,
Well,
a couple of things I want to say about that is it, we've not known each other very long, at all, but there's clearly a connection between us and a friendship. And it means a lot to me. And I think I can say this for Chris too, that the night this happened, you called us. We
yeah,
appreciate that you trust us with your story, and that you trusted us first with your story, because I know you've told it since. So we do appreciate that.
very
So
much. Very much.
You guys
as
were
we
the very first people I thought of when
good,
I was like, I've got to tell somebody, and I've got to tell somebody that I know is going to, one, believe me,
yeah,
and two, isn't going to, is going to be able to help me.
yeah, and try to walk through it and figure out what it is, and all that. So
Right.
good. So Chris, as we transition, I'm going to ask you: did you have your magic mind today?
Yes, I did, and it was awesome. I had a
Wait
lot
a
of
minute.
stuff
Wait,
to do
wait,
today.
wait, wait, wait. What is Magic Mind?
All right. So
Oh, did I?
John, we got we had a company reach out to us, because I guess we're starting to hit on some radars. But we had a company reach out to us called Magic Mind, and they're these little healthy energy shots. I mean, they're all natural. They use adaptogenic mushrooms, and these mushrooms are sourced out of California, and very nootropic. And Chris and I already use mushrooms in our daily health regimen, right? So they reached out to us, said, "Hey, let us send you some shots, these energy shots to help you with focus, and if you like them, say something about it, on your show." So Chris and I've been trying to find moments in the show to say something about it, because we did it and we liked it. We split, they sent us the samples and we split it, and we did it for, and we became fans of it. So what you do is they're just these little tiny shots in this little, you know little
It's a little
container,
ball.
and yeah, you just do it like you're doing a shot. I like mine chilled. I put them in the refrigerator. Then
Yeah,
I'll take a shot. And if you drink coffee and stuff like that, it just kind of helps enhance all that caffeine stuff. But it's very healthy. I mean, there's like 200 studies behind it. You know,
but there's no
peer
sugar,
reviewed.
and
Right.
I'm a diabetic, so there's no sugar, and um, unlike the energy drinks, you don't get that sugar crash. So
Oh,
it
I
was
like
it
my
was a
energy
nice
drinks.
it was a nice. I was up, I was moving, I was doing stuff, and for me to have a clear mind. That's done.
Right. So my wife, I'll just say this, I have ADHD really bad, so I have these moments where I just it's like data dump, and it's just right. And so Chris is the same way. She was the first time she heard me and Chris together, she was like, "Oh my gosh!" But when Chris and I are trying to record, we're all over the place. What everybody hears is, "Oh, these guys, they've got it together. They're focused." Well, there's one, it's a lot of editing, but two, this Magic Mind helps us because it's got the lion's mane mushroom in it, that it helps on focus, and you can just feel it when it kicks in. So
Mm-hmm.
John, I would challenge you, okay, if you've not looked into Magic Mind, look into them. And I tell you, you can even use the link that we'll put in the bottom of this, and you can get a discount. Use Nevermore20, okay?
I like
And
discounts.
yeah, at the checkout, listen at the discount you get, okay? 48% if you do if you do a subscription, you get 48% off of it if you use
Holy
Nevermore20.
cow.
All right. And if you just want to do a one-time purchase, of like, I think it's like a week's worth or something like that, it's there in the checkout. If you just want to do a one-time purchase, you get 20% off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
That's
here's the
pretty good.
coolest thing. All right. So Chris and I have decided in 2025, any funds that we make off the show, we're going to set aside 10% of those profits to try to help local charities or whatnot.
Yep.
And I found out here recently that in 2025, Magic Mind is going to set aside 5 cents of each bottle sold for mental health charities to help the people in U.S. homeless communities.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So look, so any of you folks, I know that was a great segue into that we could do that. So use Nevermore20 at checkout. I'll leave it in the link. But John, I would challenge you, man, give it a shot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So
And
so
it's
the
not like the psychedelic type mushrooms, is it?
no, no,
Because
No, no.
I don't want to see weird things anymore, dude.
right.
Well,
You've seen enough.
Right.
No, these don't grow in a cow pasture somewhere. They actually,
Okay.
these are good things.
Okay.
Right.
That's
Or
good.
somebody's specially designed basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So like I say, we've got about another 30 minutes or so before we can call it a good strong episode in length, because we've had some really good conversation so far. So I would like to. We were going towards Indian mounds and dogmen and stuff like that. I want to ask you something. I say this all the time, and I'm shocked at how many people don't know this. Okay. So you've heard of Saint Christopher, right? The patron
Mhm.
saint of
Yeah, he was a dog man.
he was a
Yep.
dog man,
Had a dog's head.
and right, and all these Catholic folks that are running around, and they have the Saint Christopher medallion for, I'm going to be traveling. When I point that out to them, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, yeah, he was a dog man." And they look it up, and the story of how that happened is insane. And
Yeah,
so
it's weird.
I have a pastor friend, and I was talking to him here a while back at a dinner, and we're sitting around, and the paranormal comes up, and he doesn't believe in the paranormal, which I find it odd that a pastor doesn't believe in the paranormal, right? But
You actually read a book that is full of the supernatural and the
that's
paranormal.
right.
How can you not believe in the paranormal?
That's right. Right. So there are pastors who get it. They understand that the book, that we are in a spiritual battle all day long, every day. But there are other guys who have Americanized it and westernized it to where it's a corporation, and it's just it's a feel good, motivational speech kind of thing. And I think that's where he's a great guy, but that's just where he falls. But I'll tell you, something else that shocks me about all that is that he was ferocious and he was killing people until he was met with, supposedly he met Jesus on the road. It was like, okay, I'm no longer this feral thing. I'm going to protect people on their journey instead of attack people on their journey.
And if I've heard the story correctly, and I could be wrong because I don't know everything, but when he was when he came to Christ and devoted himself to being a Christian, that's when he changed from a dog man into just a regular human being. That's the way I understand it.
there's two versions of the story. One is that he never changed, and one is that he did. Even I kind of lean on the side that you're going there. Is that version?
But it
And
could be semantics. He went from being wild and animal like to being Christian like to being more of a man. So it could be semantics whether he actually his physical body changed or is
Right.
just his spiritual body.
right. So I'll also tell you this. Do you know this? So you know the song "Onward, Christian Soldiers." You know that song?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know the guy who wrote that also wrote of his time? He wrote a book that was the most definitive book on werewolves and dogmen of its time.
Really?
Yep, look it up. His name was
Cool.
Arthur Sullivan. Here, I'll look it up real quick. 'Cause I love dropping this knowledge on people. So
Arthur Sullivan.
yeah, Arthur Sullivan, werewolf. All right, so um, he he wrote um, he wrote a book. I forget what the book is called. I'm trying to look it up. I actually ordered it, and it showed up, and I put it in a box somewhere, and I can't find where I put it. But it's he wrote a book
Sounds like
based
me.
on based on right. I've got books everywhere, but it was based on what he thought that was the most definitive werewolf dogmen, extrapolation or exposition of his time. So interesting.
Hang on. I'm looking this up.
Yeah.
Care and feeding of your own personal werewolf.
Right.
That's what it's called?
No,
No. It's
That would be
that's
cool if
Chris.
it was.
That's madman.
yeah. Flea dips are rough.
Okay. I'm looking this up.
Yeah, I'll have to find it because I've got the book here. Maybe it's not Arthur Sullivan, but Onward.
I
Because
I do
Onward.
have a Kyle Sullivan here. That's not
Yeah.
it. Werewolf fiction.
Uh,
Let's see. I just pulled up all of his stuff here.
yeah.
Holy cow. He wrote a lot.
Yeah.
He wrote almost as many stories as you do.
Yeah. I got to beat him. I got to figure out how many he's written and beat him.
I'm not seeing anything about werewolves. Holy cow, there's 13 freaking pages of this.
Yeah.
Arthur
But yeah,
Sullivan.
I'll look. I'll find it again because, like I said, I ordered it off of Amazon here a few years ago, and then we moved into this new place, and it's in a box somewhere. But when at this dinner that I was telling you about, I brought that up too, and the guy looked. We Googled whatever it is. We Googled it, and we found it, and he was like, "Huh." It just totally blew his mind. Um, so the
Well,
point there being,
when you point out to people that you know people who delve into these subjects aren't always Fruit Loops.
right?
They're highly intelligent people who lead fairly normal lives, uh, but this is something. It's a subject that people have been interested in for many years,
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, you had the Egyptians had dogmen.
right,
Yes. Yeah.
I
you know,
mean,
what Marco Polo discussed islands of the Greeks discussed islands where dogmen, so
I
if
think there was
there's
supposed to be
someone,
like a large civilization of them over by India.
yeah,
Mm.
and so here's all this throughout history, and then all of a sudden we get to modern man, and it's like, oh well, that was all just stories. Really? they
Yeah.
put a lot into it, you know,
And
and
not just one person. It was multiple people reporting
right
these things
throughout
Right.
history.
throughout history, and you're just going to say, well, they figured out gravity, they figured out that the Earth's round, but they probably don't know what they're talking about when it comes to dogmen.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah, that drives me nuts, man.
well, we still got people in the 21st century that still believe that the Earth is flat. So I'm
Well,
offended,
that
and
Well,
if I
that's
upset
because
you, I'm sorry.
no, you didn't offend me. I make fun of them all the time. Um,
well,
Well,
I'll just say this. I'll just say this, brothers. I consider you both brothers. The reason people believe the Earth is flat is because it's flat.
yeah, what?
well, on the Flat Earthers website, supposedly it says they have members all over the globe. So,
Right, all around the world.
So look, I've had this ongoing conversation with a group of people. Some are theologians and some are not. Some are um, you know college level teachers and whatnot, and they think I'm an absolute kook, right? Because I always hit them with this flat Earth stuff. So they know that back in the '90s I was a comedian, right?
yeah.
So they don't know, and they bring it up every now and then because they'll text me something, they'll show me that the Earth is round, and I'll hit them within seconds. I'll hit them with something back that shows that it's flat, right? So they think that I'm on this 5 or 6. It's been 5 or 6 years now that I'm on this 5 or 6 year joke that's going to eventually the shoe is going to drop that I don't believe it. I won't let them know if I do believe it or not. I just like having that conversation going because
Well,
they
I
are
just,
they're vehement about it. I mean, they get incensed that no, it's a globe and you're an idiot. And I'm just laughing, going, but how do you explain this? How do you explain this? How do you now? I'm not saying I believe it or not. I'm just hitting them with things to consider, and it drives them nuts.
I think Alan's
I
coming out of the
love,
closet as a flat earther.
yeah, I love just when you talk about these subjects, and they know I'm one of these people that know this obscure stuff. And as you start, they go like, "You really believe in that?" So me, I take that opportunity to just dump on,
Yep.
yeah, and you see their eyes starting to glaze over when they're just like, "What?" And
So so
I just,
John,
I love it.
Chris and I, we try to get together. Obviously, we get together and we record a lot, but we try to set aside a day every now and then. It's usually a Saturday morning. We go to our local coffee shop that we love, right? We know the owner, and we sit down and we talk. And I mean, it's literally like I can't. You have to witness this. This is something that you have to witness because I cannot do it justice. It's two men eat up with ADHD with probably 1,000 years worth of trivial knowledge between us, and we're just dumping it on each other. Just
Yep.
like and the conversations, it'll go from talking about oh, I had to get brakes on our car today, to the next thing you know we're talking about spiritual things, to the next thing you know we're talking about paranormal things, and then next thing you know we're talking about how damn good the coffee is. It's all over the place.
But if you notice, nobody sits near us.
Nobody
Everybody
does.
always, everybody always sits way in the back. And I'm like,
Well, maybe you should
you know,
shower.
No, look, it might be. It might be.
what's the point?
We've even had people sit close to us and get up and move because we're
Yeah,
so intense in our conversations.
it's just like I say, you're scaring the straights, and
Yeah.
but it. Hey, I love these stories. I've always loved these stories. Um, since I was a kid,
Yeah.
and found out that we had, an actual place in our town that is in a book as being haunted. You
Yes.
know, and it's the old mausoleum in the center of town.
Yep. I've
It's
got pictures of
at
that.
the,
I'll send
yeah,
them the pictures. Yeah.
at the Episcopal Church, one of the prominent families of the time. Their little girl was killed tragically. She was 9, and so he sent to Italy for white Italian marble, pure white. And they
Yep.
built this mausoleum. And then after they interned her into in the mausoleum, behind the Episcopal church that he also built in the center of town, these red stains started appearing on the mausoleum. So he had them replaced. He sent off to Italy for more marble, had these things replaced, and the stains came back. So they were called the blood stains on the mausoleum. And according to legend, because this little girl wasn't allowed to, they didn't think any of the children in the town were to her caliber. She was not allowed to really associate. So if you walk around the entire church and the mausoleum 7 times in silence, holding hands, the little girl is supposed to open up the door and invite you into play.
So we're doing this
So
when we come down there, right?
yes. So
Well,
look,
you can get arrested for it now because the church doesn't think too highly of people strong, being on their property.
but you
But
can walk up to it,
oh yeah,
John. You
you'll
can
be
walk
right
up.
there.
It's this ancient church in the middle of town. It's literally in the center of our town. And my son and I used to go out there all the time when he was younger, and we'd walk up and we'd take cool pictures of it and
Oh
everything. And
yeah.
one day, so imagine this as you walk up to the mausoleum and it's all in that marble, right? And it's intricately, carved,
Oh,
right?
beautiful.
One day so you've got the arched door it's a carved ornate wooden door, right? But in front of it there's a wrought iron very ornate fence that or gate that won't let you get. You can stick your hand in the gate, but it's just a couple of inches. You can touch the door, but you can't open the door. One day we were there and the door was open, right? So we kind of pushed it open and you could see
Uh-huh.
the sarcophagus of the girl in there, and she's carved. It's a sarcophagus right in the middle of this mausoleum of the little girl,
Oh,
and
wow.
And
it's
I
dope.
believe
Yeah, it's
the
cool.
entire family is interred there now. They had a child that died, a little boy that died when he was a baby. The mother slipped on ice, fell backwards, and died. Landed, and then I forget how the father died, but yeah. And then uh, a friend of mine, there's the house that it used to be our library, and it's named after these people. And this is an old Edwardian mansion, and it's not too far. It's like maybe half a block from the mausoleum. Buddy of mine who's a combat Marine, you know, um, he called me one day. He goes, "Hey man, I was out running last night downtown." I said, "Okay." Summertime. He goes, "I looked down, my shoe was untied, so I knelt down in front of the old library, tie my shoe." He said, "I looked up and turned around, and up at the very top, it's the very top of the house, and it's 4 huge pieces of glass, you know." And he said, "This little girl was up there waving at me." I said,
No
uh,
way.
"There's no floor up there." He said, "Uh huh." I said, "What'd you
Oh.
do?" He said, "I ran to the truck." He said, "I ain't been that afraid. I've been shot at."
Right, right.
Holy cow.
So
Yeah.
when you come down, John, we're going to take you downtown, literally the center of town. Okay. And it's the old part of town. It was when Cleveland was cool and dope. And when you get there, you're going to stand at the gazebo in the center of town and you're going to go, "This is Nevermore Hollows." I'm standing in the
Oh yeah.
center Main Street of Nevermore Hollows because it's that old school Mayberry kind of thing. And you've got some of those buildings that have been there, almost a couple hundred years now,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's
Well,
really cool.
the house that used to be the old library, which is now the historic branch, if they're open, we'll take you in there. The doors to this place are at least a foot thick, and it's
Yeah,
one
Really?
solid hunk of wood. Oh, it's
Are they real
amazing.
yeah,
tall too? Like 8
Yeah,
foot tall?
super
yeah.
tall
Why did they need doors like that?
to
Yeah,
show
yeah.
how much
I know
money
where
they
you're
had.
going with that.
You look at like a lot of these like old courthouses and stuff,
Yeah.
Yep.
and the doors are like 10, 12 feet tall. Why?
Well, you
So
walk
so
in
we're
this
getting.
place, and this is the perfect place for a murder. I mean, the stairwell goes up, staircase goes up, and then spirals up into the upper floors. And there are what do they call them? The casket corners
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are built in the side, and
And so you
I
can get
used to
caskets
deliver.
down the steps. There was a place
Yeah,
Right.
for a
right.
relief for the caskets to go around the corners. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to deliver office furniture, and every time I delivered in that building, I would always start out with, I've heard ever since I was a kid this place was haunted. And everybody I said that to, they, no. And every one of them said, well, there was that one time. There was
Right.
that one time, where, and then because this is the type of father that I am, my kids were in elementary school, and it was right before Halloween. It was a bright fall day, and I pulled into the parking lot there, and I looked at both my children in the back, and I said, I got $5 in my pocket. Whoever can run up there and touch that front door. And I knew nobody was there. My daughter was out of the truck and she was on her way, man. What she didn't see was that squirrel that was sitting on the fence there. And as soon as she hit that door, that squirrel squeaked, and that dude, she didn't hit the ground until she got back to the truck. I still had to give her $5 though.
So,
But yeah,
John, where you were going with the tall doors, I we're coming up on where we need to end this one, but I'm getting ready to open up a can of worms right here.
go
The
for it.
mud floods. The mud floods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's something there. I've been
Tartania.
going deep into that lately. And, because they were still doing the very tall doors before supposedly that history just got erased. There's
Right.
something there. I always approach it like you. I always approach it as a skeptic. Everything I approach, I go, nope, it didn't happen. I'm going to, so I think I've said this before. Back in a former life, I was an investigator. Okay. And most investigators do this. They go, John, I walk into a room and John is standing over Madman holding a knife. Madman's dead. I'm going to be able to take that evidence and prove that John is guilty. Okay. That's the wrong way of doing an investigation. I always approached investigations of going, I walked in on the same scene, but I'm going to try to prove John's innocence. Okay. I could make that evidence prove you guilty enough to get you put in jail. But if I can't prove you innocent, right? So I always approached it that way. So that's how I approached the paranormal. If I can't disprove it, then I have to work it into my worldview.
Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, I want us to maybe come back and have a conversation with you on. I think our next conversation just needs to be like the last 30 minutes is just free flowing. It's been a fun
Yeah.
conversation.
I want you guys to come on my show and do it off the rails where all we just sit and talk.
Yeah, let's do it. Anytime.
So
Look,
we just pick
I
a subject
believe
and we'll just see where the conversation leads.
Right. I believe that in the podcast realm, there is enough success to go around. Let's just share and let's build each other up, because it's fun. And, it's not like normal businesses or ventures, whether they be business or not, where you go, oh, I can't plug John. He's going to take
Right.
something away from me. No, we're in this is a wonderful community. And I love the fact that we're all just getting together and telling stories.
Yeah. I was talking to the guys from Chumming with the Spirits on Saturday. Same thing. It's like we're all small time. We got to work
Yeah.
together. We got to, plug each other. We've got to,
Yeah.
help each other out. And
Yep.
I love it. I love it. I've made so many friends since I've
Right.
started this. And
It's funny. I sat alone in the corner of my room going, this is Lafayette Faust in the secret bunker. And then never talked to a soul. It was just me and a microphone. And then Chris comes back into my life and says, hey, dude, there's a big world out there. And now, like you, I have all these friends all over I've got a guy in Australia that interviewed me a couple of years ago that I need to reach out to him again because I've been thinking he's been on my mind. What a wonderful guy. We had such a great conversation, but you meet people all over the world if you just allow yourself.
yeah. Yeah. And I really have to thank TikTok because, when I first started doing content creation, it was like you. It was me in my car
Right.
recording myself, and then when I branched out to TikTok, I'm gonna have to thank my daughter for that because the only reason I have TikTok is because it used to be called Musically,
Yeah.
and she was like 11, 12 years old and wanted to get on this Musically thing, and we're like, "Well, I'm getting on it too, so I can see what you're doing," you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And once I started posting to TikTok and I started getting this following, and I'm like, "Okay, let's try this live thing." And
Yeah.
I've met so many freaking awesome people
Right.
just
Yeah.
thanks to TikTok, that I would have
Right.
never met any other way. And, doing those lives, I think it's helped me, you know, with my presentation,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think and I'm bragging on myself a little bit. I think I interview people well.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is because I've had so much experience just being on TikTok. Just, I'm going to randomly send this person an invite
Right.
and, and see if they want to chat, and I love it. I love talking to people. I love,
Yeah.
meeting new people and starting this podcast, I'm meeting so many more people like
Right.
you, like Chris, like Matthew, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, and, that's the thing for me is, when you're a creator, it can be a very lonely. I don't say lonely in a bad way. It can be a very um, lonely is not the right word. It's just you're by yourself, right? Chris is at the table. He's drawing all the time. He's alone. I'm sitting, somewhere writing all the time. You're alone. And so when you get these, and we're all very personable people. So, when we get those moments to make these connections, and then when they resonate the way that it's resonated with you and Chris, man, it's a hoot. It is.
Yeah,
It's a highlight of my day. It's a highlight of my week. And we've all been trying to do more of these. And I think me and you and Chris have a couple of ideas about how to get more content out together, separately and together in 2025. But man, I say my thing is when life gets in the way, I let it get in the way. We need to stop
yeah.
letting life get in the way and just make this happen because it's been a blast. All right, so I'll wrap us up here. I know Chris has had to step away for a moment, but um, this has been a great interview, brother. We heard a powerful story from you, and then we had 30-40 minutes of just free flow, fun conversation. You are
Us
always
being us.
welcome. Right, right, and see. This is something I find interesting too, because the people who listen to Nevermore Hollows, they don't get to see this side of me, right?
Right.
They see Lafayette Faust, very focused, you know, trying to get something said. Where here you see more of my real personality. It's just kind of all over the place, free flowing. But you are welcome in Nevermore Hollows anytime, brother.
I appreciate it. I love being there.
All right. All right. Well, we'll sign off. So, everybody, thank you for giving us another listen. Look, share our episodes with everybody. We're trying to grow big in 2025. We're still super tiny. We're the little podcast that could. And, we love you for being our fans. And I got to tell you, the Nevermore Hollows fans are awesome. I mean, I see other fans on other shows, but my folks, they're always got something positive to say. Even if they didn't like the episode, they always say something positive, and they've supported everything that we've done. And I appreciate everybody for doing that. So share it with everybody, text it to somebody. And this is Lafayette Faust. This is John Cougar Hunter Methencamp and Chris Madman Goins. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.